Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly in-depth ag forecast brought to you by AgSouth Farm Credit. Well, yesterday we watched this very slow-moving large low finally exit farther to the east, and it's still kind of lingering along our coast early today, but I wanted to show you a couple of things about this. This is a big system. It's been stacked up, meaning the upper level low is sitting over the surface low, and it's taken a long time to get out. One of the problems we have this time of year with stacked lows is that they can really deliver a lot of cold air, and we actually woke up this morning with some very cold air here on Friday that got into parts of the Carolinas and Virginia over the top of the Blue Ridge Mountains. Now, there's something else I want to discuss about these systems. We call these extratropical cyclones or mid-latitude cyclones, but we're going to be talking very much throughout this entire summer about the upcoming tropical cyclone season. And if you are unaware of this, the Colorado State University released yesterday its new forecast for the upcoming hurricane season. If you want to read more about it, just Google CSU, so that's Colorado State University, CSU hurricane forecast 2024, and you'll find it. And this is what it's showing. We're going to compare average, which is over here in this column, to their forecast, which is in the middle column. And then you can see the different parameters that kind of run along this column. And no matter which way you slice this, their early season outlook is not just above average, but well above average. From the number of hurricanes, where they're projecting 11, average is 7.2, to the number of hurricane days, major hurricanes. Look at all these categories. Most of them are 150 to nearly 200% of normal. And they're very clear about why they have that as a forecast. And it echoes a lot of what I've been sharing with you for the last several weeks. And I'm just going to make this statement, okay? I am concerned about summer drought development in AgSouth territory. I'm concerned about that summer drought development being wiped out late in the season by a very active hurricane season. And I want to make a case for you why I think that could be what happens. And then, of course, always show you the failure points on it, so you know where I'm still a bit uncertain. But the reality of it is that this hurricane forecast is quite potent, and most of it's based off of the early ocean temperature analysis. So it's the same narrative. The ocean temperatures in the Atlantic are still very, very warm compared to historical averages. The main development region already in early April is well above its historical mean. And at the same time that this is already so warm, we're watching the end of an El Niño event, which actually is completely gone. The trade winds are no longer behaving like El Niño. And we're going to be transitioning into a La Niña probably by the time we get into hurricane season. And here's the idea. When you get into the hurricane season and La Niña begins to show up, that's actually the result of much stronger trade wind activity happening here. And in the upper levels of the atmosphere, what the strong trade wind activity does is it tends to rob the momentum and speed from the upper levels of the atmosphere, meaning that the wind shear over this section of the Atlantic drops off. I'm sure a lot of you know this and have heard this, but when you think about what wind shear does, well, this is what it does. It shears apart these big systems. Early this morning as the sun was rising on Friday, look how big this thing is. The reason why it has that big comma shape to it is simply because the wind shear on the backside is just shoving the thing and disrupting it and blowing it out into this massive, massive system. These extratropical cyclones are huge compared to tropical cyclones. But with lower wind shear over warmer water, we have the ingredients that are necessary to allow any sort of tropical thunderstorm activity to develop more easily into a tropical storm or a hurricane. And that's the big idea. Now, I'm going to give you one other area to watch. And the other area that I want you to watch in the ocean temperatures is here. This area right there in the North Pacific. Now, even though it's on the other side of the continent, this is your setup. This is your upstream regime that you have to watch to determine how the jet stream is going to move across the country through the rest of spring and into summer. And here's the big idea behind this. We have to actually pay attention to what happens in the central United States before we pay attention to what happens to us. And we have to watch upstream of that, which is here, to see if the atmosphere is advertising any sort of a displacement in the jet stream pattern. So let me stitch this narrative together for you. If you were in the central United States right here, you would be worrying a lot about very, very cold water developing here over the next several weeks. Some of the big reasons why, look at 2012. That is a massive drought year for the midsection of the United States. Very cold water in this kind of reverse C shape. What about another hot year, 2002, cold water right along the West Coast? What about another one, 1991? I can go through all of them, and they all have this kind of same outlook, cold water here. But as we step back and think about where we currently are, we know that the waters are quite warm here, and they're starting to cool off there. But what do they do over the next 45 days, which could lead to major risk of drought in the midsection of the country? So let me show you this analysis, because what happens there impacts you. Ready? So here you go. During some of the worst years for summer, for heat in the central United States, we end up getting what's called the triple ridge pattern. Big ridge here over Japan almost, a massive one almost over like Minnesota and just north of it, and a big ridge that's set up over Europe. Now, what is that? We call that the triple ridge 1, 2, 3, and a low forms here. Now, what's the significance of this? If we get into a situation where the jet stream pattern does something like this, this is not a call out for major drought risk in AgSouth territory. It's actually even a way to suppress the hurricane season, making it come later and later and later. Now, the reason why I say all of that is because developing massive ridges of high pressure that live in the mid part of the country through August into early September, well, we tend to get, on the downside of it, storms, whereas we just bake and fry the Corn Belt. So these are years that are terrible for the central United States. And I'm bringing this up because I want to explain why we need to watch these ocean temperatures right now. You know why we're watching the Atlantic. It's for the hurricane season. But what about here? Well, if we produce deep troughs of low pressure, they produce clouds and they chop up the winds with a bunch of waves and whatnot, and we overturn the water and it gets cooler there. And in those particular years, the most common early season indicator that we're going to get into that pattern is if we get cold water in that place, meaning that the Pacific highs left, the Bermuda highs left, and a big omega block shows up. Now, inside of that block, we're in trouble, but here and here, we typically aren't. So the reason why we're focusing on ocean temperatures right in this area is because at this point in the year, that's the symptom in the Pacific that I'll be watching to determine the jet stream pattern on the upwind side of you. Here's a couple of other things that happen when that occurs. Okay, yes, the ocean temperatures get cold. Those really, really drought-stricken hot years, we had cold water here and cold water there. Now, can you remember that for a second? What did that do? That particular pattern robbed momentum from the jet stream, and La Niña was developing. The MJO lived in this area. Now, I'm going to contrast this with really, really wet years in the midsection of the country, because when those years happened, we didn't have La Niña, we had El Niño. And all of the intense upward motion moved here. And there was a lot of sinking motion there. And what did this do? Well, this is what the ocean temperatures did. They were very warm in this area and warm in that area. And there's a few years here that stick out to us in AgSouth territory as being, well, those not good years to remember, like 2016, just as one of the factors. Now, the question is, are we moving more toward this as we go into summer? Because if we do, what does that do? It produces a ridge here instead of a trough. So what do we end up getting? A low that forms there. So the flow goes over the ridge, under the trough, and guess what it bounces over the top of? A large ridge of high pressure that sits over AgSouth territory. And that is a major concern I have for this year. So what do you need to take away from this? What does this analysis mean for you? What it means is this. We could be looking at a very active hurricane season. I actually don't know of a single forecaster out there that isn't looking at the same things I just looked at to give you the outlook for this hurricane season. But if you want to know what your summer drought risk looks like, don't worry too much about La Niña. Worry more about these ocean temperatures here. Now, here it is in a nutshell. If these go warmer, your drought risk goes up. If these go colder, your drought risk either stays the same or possibly decreases. So we have to keep a close eye on that area, and this is why. Given what I know right now, and I'm going to get brand new long-range data later today. I wish I could record this for you tonight on Friday night and send it, but I want to make sure it gets out before the weekend. Next week, I'll be able to show you all that new long-range data, but I'm going to give you first my analog forecast. Now, as it stands, I've showed this to you many times, I'm worried about three areas. I'm worried first about this part of Texas, or the Mid-South, or the Southeast. Why number 3? Well, in some of those years where the ocean temperatures warmed up on the West Coast rather than got cold, we built in huge southeast ridges. Like 2016 is in this analog package, and that was extremely hot and very dry for many. It was only broken late by an active tropical season, which brought systems that hugged the coast and systems that came up out of the Gulf, which meant we went into drought in summer and then too much rain late. And I just want to let you know that I'm concerned about it. It's only April the 5th, so I don't have, this is skeptical. This is just drawing on past. But I want to let you know that I'm concerned about that. I'm also concerned about warmer overnight low temperatures. I really am. And I was doing this analysis earlier this morning for the Ohio River Valley, simply because that's where the epicenter of this is. But I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go back to this climate at a glance tool. And instead of showing you Ohio River Valley, let's just go to the southeast. And let's plot out the southeast historical temperature trends for minimum temperatures. In a nutshell, since the 70s, we're up about 2 degrees in total with warmer overnight lows, meaning we're going to continue a longer term trend in this area for the southeast. So I just understand that I'm concerned that scenario number 3 is a possibility. Now let's say that that's wrong. The alternative is that drought sets up in the mid-south or drought sets up in the southwest. In those cases, you're fine. We're going to have good summer thunderstorms, normal summer thunderstorms. I think it's still going to be a hotter summer, but I'm not overly concerned that it's going to be the completely beat you down with drought kind of summer. So now you know what I'm thinking, and you know the reason behind it, which means we still have to watch week by week how the pattern evolves. And I've got some important news for you on how that's all going to be changing. Because since the beginning of March, we've kept a high pressure cell here. Now remember, this is spring. So the flow's gone over the top of it, dipped down here. But instead of planting a big ridge of high pressure over the southeast early, it's been way over here. And as a result of that, we've had mostly mild conditions just until the last 10 days or so, right? For most of March and even a couple of days in early April, we had some mild air that made it into our area. It's been colder west. But what's interesting about this whole pattern has been the precipitation. Because while we have been extremely wet in most of AgSouth territory, we've been a bit drier in the mid-south, in the southern plains, part of the cotton belt in the northern plains as well. And the question is, how does this pattern continue to evolve as we go forward with respect to our temperatures and precip? By the way, just so you know, right now we had a bunch of snow that just came down here on the headwaters of the Mississippi. And in addition to that, take a look at what just fell across, across the last 7 days throughout the Ohio basin. It's a lot of precipitation. Now, we got streaky thunderstorms out of this, didn't we? So did parts of this part of the cotton belt. But very, very heavy and persistent rains in this region. And all that's going to come down the major river systems, and it's going to be a major boost in terms of soil moisture. So I want you to think about the corn belt for those corn and soybean growers over here right now. Because back at the beginning of March, our root zone soil moisture map looks something like this, and this is what it looks like today. I mean, that's a massive change due to that recent precipitation. You can also expect to continue to see changes in the drought monitor. While there is still one small corner of North Carolina on the drought monitor, most of the rest of the countries continue to see some improvement. We're now down to 18% of the lower 48 covered in D1 to D4 drought. So that does not include that lightest shade of yellow in there. So what does all this mean? This means that we're looking at a critical time period here in April that's going to be setting us up for what this summer could be a risky look at summer simply due to the one of the 3 regions I'm thinking about for drought. So let's go back and build our short-term narrative into this. And again, next Friday, I'm going to give you all new long-range information. That's all coming. So here we go. The next system that we have to think about, it's off the west coast. There it was yesterday. Here it is into the overnight hours. And man, is it a windy system. But take a look at this. While strong winds are screaming up the plains and coming out of the southwest basin here, where we're going to have, there's red flag warnings, wind warnings. What are we getting? We're getting the backside of this low, which is why our temperatures bottomed out this morning. And we had early this morning a frost advisory out for much of North and South Carolina. Very cold here, but super windy into this part of the country. In fact, we've got for the next few days critical fire risk coming into this section of country. There it is today. That's tomorrow on Saturday. Here it is today. This is what Friday looks like. So does this system get to us? Well, no, it doesn't. Watch. As we just play through the rest of Friday, there's a little bit of light snow getting up against the western facing side of the Appalachian Mountains here in the Blue Ridge Mountains, but nothing. That system curls up right there in North Dakota, Nebraska, goes toward Minnesota. We get high pressure. It's gone. This is not the system that's going to get us. When do we have a system to watch out for? Well, don't watch this guy. That's the one that's already coming through and going right toward Minnesota. See it? You need to start watching on Monday, this low right here. Because from Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, it's a very slow moving low. I mean, very slow. It takes 4 days to get here. And by the time it gets there late in next week, we're going to start to see the rain out of this. And it's going to come through and bring in some locally heavy precipitation. It's going to be a while before it gets here. And after that, we may get a short break. We may see some more wide open planting windows show up and the temperatures make a nice little rebound. And that's what I think a lot of the country is going to be seeing late in the month of April. More open planting windows with much more mild conditions. So let's go have a look at it. How much rain are we going to get out of this thing? Well, this is the artificial intelligence forecasting system. And most of what you see right here is all coming in that system, which leaves California next Monday night, gets into Arizona, New Mexico Tuesday, and doesn't get to us till the end of the week. So to show you that, let's go to the models. I have the GFS on the left, European on the right. I can play this pretty fast because the first system, that one that curls up there, not a problem for us. When do we start to find the rain our way? Well, here it is. There's Tuesday, getting into Wednesday, Thursday. That's when late next week is when we start to build in chances for precip. And then that low gets over us Thursday into Friday, goes up to New England, and then after that, there's another break because there's ridges of high pressure that start to build in here. Now, there will be severe weather with this. That's where it's going to be on Monday. There it is Tuesday and Wednesday. Do you see how slow it is? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We do not have an outlook for day 7 or day 8 right now, but you can imagine that as a storm system gets to us next Thursday, Friday, that we'll be talking about the risk of some stronger storms. As we look out there, I also want to mention that when this system comes out of California, the timing of it is very, well, quite poorly timed with where the eclipse is going to go, right? So that's close enough. There's a lot of cloud cover down here in this part of the country. So if you're heading, west over to Texas, I'd tell you to maybe go toward the mid-south or just go straight to Maine. I think Maine might have good viewing, but there's quite a bit of cloud cover coming out of this next system. Okay, put it all together. Over the next 7 days, where are we expecting the wettest conditions? Well, here. You're going, well, that's not us yet. Well, I know, because this system doesn't get to you until day 7. Right? It'll be here next Thursday, Friday time frame getting into this region. But that's echoed by both the models here. But if I take this back here and we look at the 10-day, now we start to bring in better moisture into this area. So you're getting that out there, quite a ways back. Let's go do that real quick. I'm just going to go back to my website. You can get all these from agweather.com. Let's go to precipitation forecast. And here's the 10-day. See how it's starting to move more of that moisture into your area, but it's still a ways out overall. Okay, snow all in the west, some still in the north. I just want to bring you up to speed on this because the west has got great snowpack in the Central Rockies, the Great Basin, and the Sierra Nevada, just to kind of keep you up to speed on some of that information. But take a look at this. This is the day 8 through 14 forecast. Some new mapping I'm doing for you. Again, going to be on agweather.com. Most of the wet that you see here is coming from the system that doesn't arrive here until next Thursday, Friday. But after that, see this larger area of drier conditions? I think the whole country gets into a little stretch of drier weather, which means what are we going to do with that, especially if the temperatures start to rebound? Because certainly this morning it was cold. That was our frost risk you see showing up here on our frost potential map. And if we look at the next 7 days, watch this. Here's Friday's highs. It's a cool one. Saturday, still cool. But as we go forward into Sunday and Monday, warmer conditions return. There's Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, that's when some cooler air could come back, but not cold. That's going to be induced with some cloud cover. And that's why you see in the day 5 through 10, there's still some lingering effects of that cooler weather. But by the time we get to day 10 through 15, mild conditions open up, and I think we spend some time there. It's even echoed in the GFS. That was the GFS. This is the European model. Look, that's day 5 through 10. That's day 10 through 15. So we're making this pretty significant break away from the pattern which has driven some cold air into place at times, and we're going forward. Now, does this mean we can't get a late April stacked low that sits here? When I say stacked, that means the surface low sits underneath the upper level low, and that's the ones that drive the really cold air into our region. That's always possible in late April, but I'm not seeing it right now. In fact, the longer range outlooks look like this for precipitation through the month of April into early May. A lot of what you've got here over the next 30 days is coming right now, okay? I think we're going to get a little bit of a drier signal at times, and take a look at these temperatures. this is fantastic. I mean, I don't see any major cold risk going all the way out through May. You're going, wait, I see cool here. I think it's a bias in the models. I don't think it's there. I think I think the temps are going to come up. I think we're going to be in good shape. So in this video, we covered the hurricanes. We covered the seasonal forecast. We went back to the near term so you can kind of see what I'm thinking. And I just want to finish up with a bit on South America because this is one of our bigger missteps. I thought that as we saw the forecast evolving into mid-April that the Safrinha crop area, which is right in through here, would be going drier, and it's just not. It's wet and continuing to stay wet, which means getting some sort of story out of Safrinha cotton or Safrinha corn on the downside in South America doesn't look to be something that will likely be happening. We'll keep an eye on it. Late April into May is critical for pollination for corn and then grain fill for corn after that. They don't harvest this crop until June or July, though. So just wanted to bring you up to speed on it, keep you aware of what's going on in South America. But with that, I'm going to stop and I tell you all to have a great weekend. I look forward to catching up again next Friday when we're probably going to have a system somewhere nearby us, okay? I'll talk to you then. Thanks.